Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Charlotte and this is Charlotteshelves. I try to upload fortnightly bookish and lifestyle related content for you, and today we have a summer TBR reading list. These are all the books and more that I would like to get through the months of June, July and August and carry me safely through to spooky season. I'm not really a summer person, I'm very much a spooky winter autumnal girly, and this is going to be reflected in my reading tastes for the next 3 months. So if you would really like to see some good thrillers, horrors, creepy books, some good actions and a real mix of what I'm hoping to get through in the next 3 months, then keep watching. I'm going to start with the horrors first because these are the ones that I'm most excited to get to. I have got 8 on my list. I have been wanting to read a lot more Stephen King. I love his work and I've read a couple of his bigger novels and collections of the short stories. This summer I wanted to get to a couple of his shorter ones. The first Stephen King book I have is Nightmares in the Sky. This is, I don't know if it's a coffee table book, I'm not sure what it is. It's Stephen King's writing with artwork and images accompanying it. So it looks like this, and then, I don't know if you can see, and it's got some really creepy but beautiful images going through it. So I'm looking forward to reading that. And this is one I haven't seen people talk about in any hauls or Stephen King readathons yet, so I'm quite curious to see if it's any good. Next on my TBR is a Stephen King novella that I've got on my Kindle, and that is The Mist. I really loved the movie version of this film and it was so dark and upsetting, especially that ending. It's a real stinger and I can't wait to read the novella version of this. I believe the characters all take safety from the mist in a supermarket, and I can't remember if the monsters are like aliens or they're a government experiment or if they're like sort of paranormal. I can't remember. The next Stephen King I have is Christine. This apparently is more of a classic Stephen King and I'm looking forward to it. I love this particular paperback edition that I've been given. My understanding of it is that the car is potentially possessed, or it's kind of got a demonic entity, or there's something unsettling about it and it kind of possesses the driver or whoever owns the vehicle and causes bad things to happen to them. I've not read a book that is involving a car as the vessel, literally and figuratively. As the blurb says, there was still power in her, a frightening power that leaked like sump oil, staining and corrupting. A malign power that corroded the mind and turned ownership into possession. The final Stephen King book and the 4th book in my TBR is On Writing, which is a non-fiction work by Stephen King. I've also grabbed a copy of that on Kindle, and I believe it's a set of essays and sort of collections of thoughts that he's put together on just the art of writing itself and his own meditations and reflections on how he approaches each particular creative piece or what he's working on, and just how he exists as a writer really. And I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm hoping that it's quite insightful into him also as a person and as a writer and an artist. The 5th book that I'd like to get to is another horror classic, and this is Rosemary's Baby by Ira Levin. I think I've said before I read Stepford Wives last year and I loved it, so I'm really excited to pick up another one of their works. I've seen the movie, so again I kind of know the gist of what it's about, but I've heard the novel is quite punchy and it also captures that sense of dread and unease and something is not right and builds quietly. So I'm looking forward to seeing if that is true, but also if it's as good as the movie, because the movie is so bloody good. I also quite enjoy sort of demonic possession type cult books as a theme or a trope or a genre. So if you've seen or read either, let me know what you think. The 6th book I have is under horror is The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. I read The Drift either earlier this year, over December, because it was a perfect sort of wintry read. I've seen a lot of people rate and like and love on this book, so I had to pick it up, and I think she's going to quickly become a thriller horror author that I start to collect. Blurb for this says, an unconventional vicar moves to a remote corner of the English countryside to discover a community haunted by death and disappearances, both past and present. They're intent on keeping the dark secrets. In this explosive and unsettling thriller, 500 years ago, 8 Protestant martyrs were burned at the stake in this town. 30 years ago, 2 teenage girls disappeared without a trace. It sounds like there's also some like religious and biblical possession type themes as well within this. So I'm quite looking forward to maybe it could be a religious themed horror maybe. I don't know. Again, if you have read this, no spoilers, but am I thinking it's what I think it's gonna be? And if you've read it, do let me know what you think, because this is one that is probably higher to the top of the list that I want to get through. It sounds so compelling. The 7th book I have on my horror reading list for the summer is Black Sheep by Rachel Harrison. This was also on my October TBR. I didn't manage to get to it in spooky season, so I've popped this up in the sort of order of my TBR because I really want to get around to reading it. I do not want this sitting on my TBR any longer. I think it's going to be really great, and this is another one where I think someone escapes either sort of a very religious family and they come back home and weird things are going on. I think it's also got some creepy religious undertones too. I'm hoping this will live up to my expectations. The final horror book I have, I mentioned again in a previous video. This I bought at 66 Books a couple of months ago, and this is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. This is also, I think, going to be a paranormal type, spooky, maybe horror thriller. I understand that the lead protagonist has recently gotten sober. She is caring for a child for this family. The child is drawing these super increasingly creepy and horrible pictures, and there's something going on. We don't know if it's actually the child drawing them or if someone else, as in a sort of, I think, a paranormal entity is actually the one doing it. But I've heard there are some really dark, gross, kind of effed up scenes in this towards the end, and that is why that is being bumped up my list to read this summer. Oh, even that cover is so flippin' cool. Next, we have the thrillers that I would love to read this summer. And I'm starting with this book which was gifted to me, and this is Falling by TJ Newman. This is everything that I think is going to make me cry or make me puke or scare me, because I hate flying, and this is a plane that has been hijacked, I believe. 30 minutes before the flight, your pilot's family was kidnapped, and for his family to live, everyone on your plane must die. The only way the family will survive is if the pilot follows his orders and crashes the plane. And then it finishes, enjoy the flight. Can't think of anything worse. I cannot think of anything that's going to scare me more. Petrifying. I'd wanted to read this for ages. It was on my TBR, and my friend picked it up in a secondhand bookshop for me and was like, do you want this? And I went, yeah, I'm ready to get hurt. Next, I have two legal thrillers, crime legal thrillers by John Grisham. I would really love to reread The Runaway Jury. This is one of my all-time favourite legal crime thriller type books. It's just masterful. There was a movie made in the sort of earlier 2000s, which is also wonderful, but doesn't quite capture the tension and the slow build up, because John Grisham is one of those where if it's one of his longer books, you're in for a ride. You know, you have to kind of wait to see where it's going. And this one is so full of twists and turns. It's such an experience. I read this when I was about 15 or 16, and I don't know what business I had at 15 reading John Grisham, but I've been a fan ever since, and I love this. This is probably my second favourite book of his. I also have a second John Grisham book, which is Sparring Partners. This is 3 novellas in one book. This has got a really nice flop, this one. Like a really, I don't know if I'm capturing that, but a really nice flop. And I think this is one of his newer books. I don't know much about it, and I'm looking forward to reading 3 sort of novellas by him. I've never read any of his novella form type work, only his full-size novels, so I'm looking forward to reading that for something a bit different too. I think this is the 12th book on the list, and this is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. I've talked about this book previously, so I won't bother you too much by repeating that, but she is the author of Gone Girl, and she is another extraordinary tour de force of a thriller writer, and I just can't wait to read this. I wish that she had written more books, because I think she's only got 4 major novels, and this is the last one that I've got left to read. So hopefully she'll bring out something soon, but I just think this looks incredible, and from what I've read about it, it sounds so... Her work is very dark. There are a lot of, like, I would say, trigger warnings to do with some of the topics and the subject matter that she writes about, and I'm hoping that this is going to be just as scary and unsettling as the other 2 or 3 books of hers that I've read, and that is Dark Places. The 13th thriller that I have is It Girl by Ruth Ware. The blurb for this says, Hannah found April's body 10 years ago, and she didn't question what she saw that day. Did her testimony put an innocent man in prison? She needs to know the truth, even if it means questioning her own friends and putting her own life at risk. If the killer wasn't a stranger, could it be someone she knows? Perfect. Like, I haven't read any Ruth Ware in ages, so I'm looking forward to reading this. And there's also, she's published a book this year, which is a follow-up to, I think, The Woman in Cabin 10, but it's a follow-up with the same characters, and that's also another one that I'm thinking of getting to, but I need to read this. Something you will notice in this TBR is that I have tried to go through a lot of the books that I already own on my TBR, that I've already featured in other videos that I didn't get to, and I'm trying to do a good kind of bookish cleanup. I'm trying to finish certain aspects of my TBR. I'm trying to finish like my last year's spooky season books. I'm trying to finish up some of the books that I didn't quite manage to get to over Christmas, and also some of the books that I was given for my birthday last year, including this one. So I'm really trying to work through my TBR and not buy any new books, not buy anything this summer. I'm not going to ask for any books for my birthday. I'm just going to really make a concerted effort to get through what I already have. On that note, there is this book which I got given last summer, and I think I said before, this very much reminds me of Naomi Alderman's The Power. It reminds me a bit of Christine Datcher's Vox. It's got very, there's a particular kind of female dystopian writer, sci-fi, hybrid, thriller, sort of subgenre that I'm really enjoying at the moment, and I feel like this fits under that umbrella. The blurb says that this girl, her and her mother created like a commune or a sort of community, and she managed to get thousands of followers. So I'm guessing it's more like a cult than a community. But it says, in the aftermath of what comes to be known as the event, the community's global influence quickly grows, and as a result, the whole world has an opinion about Rachel, whether they see her as a callous monster or a heroic martyr. But Amelia has never voiced hers publicly until now. And this is described as engrossing and original. This will get people talking. I think I'll call that. The 15th book I have is The Inmate by Frida McFadden. My copy of this is on Kindle. I was just checking where it was on my Notion spreadsheet. I just thought this seemed like a really nice, easygoing thriller. Frida McFadden books are the kind of wild rides that you just enjoy in the space of like a 24-hour window if you want to, and they're just easygoing. Like if you want something that isn't gonna be too distressing, because a lot of what I've picked up is gonna be, I think there's gonna be some heavier subject matter going on, and I feel like the Frida McFadden book that I've chosen is gonna be more lighthearted and is gonna break up some of the more traumatizing reads this summer. The blurb for The Inmate says, there are 3 rules Brooke Sullivan must follow as a new nurse practitioner at a men's maximum security unit. Treat all prisoners with respect, never reveal personal information, and never become too friendly. None of the staff at the prison know that Brooke has already broken these rules, and that she has an intimate connection to Shane Nelson, one of the penitentiary's most notorious and dangerous inmates. They don't know that Shane was Brooke's high school sweetheart, the star quarterback now spending the rest of his life in prison for a series of grisly murders, or that Brooke's testimony was what put him there. But Shane knows, and he will never forget. I don't know where that book is going to take us. It sounds fun, it probably sounds a bit silly, and I'm probably going to eat it up this summer. The next 6 books or so are all non-fiction. So the first one, which is a book I've already actually read, and this is The Spectacle of Illusion. It's a really gorgeous, I don't know if you would call it a coffee table book, but it's kind of about the history of magic and the occult, and it is about illusion, but it's also, there's a lot about mysticism and spiritualism and how that kind of started in the 19th century and how people started to create magic tricks, but also seances and different things that they would do to help people connect with the dead, and how they believed in apparitions. And it's a real mixed bag. It covers all sorts of practices to do with the occult, and I use magic as a very loose term because this book covers a lot of history too, and it's got wonderful images and different spooky things going on. And I made a little reel about it on Instagram, sharing some of the images from it because I thought it was so flipping cool, and it's beautifully illustrated as well. This was originally a text that was accompanying an exhibition at the Wellcome Collection, and if you're into any kind of horror or spooky shit, or you love podcasts, like I would say like lore, that sort of thing, this might be for you. The next non-fiction book I have or want to read is Knife by Salman Rushdie, Meditations on a Murder. That is also as part of the AAPI achievement that Goodreads are running. If you aren't aware, Goodreads run various reading achievements to encourage you to read more or to read different genres or categories or types of author, and that's why I'm also reading that book. It's a non-fiction autobiography of an attack that Rushdie was victim of, and how he kind of worked through it, and also how he kind of processed his trauma. If you know anything about Rushdie at all, then you will perhaps understand what the impetus for the attack was. I don't know if it's technically counted as a terrorist incident, but it's certainly motivated by someone with very extremist views, and he, for the first time, is kind of sharing a lot of what he went through. The next non-fiction work I have is Night by Elie Wiesel. Wiesel and their family were captured by the Nazis and interned in a camp, and I believe this story is his autobiography of the horrors and the lived experiences of trying to survive through those atrocities. And this book, I also believe, has won the Nobel Peace Prize for writing. I've heard this is Very harrowing, but beautifully written, and my friend had purchased a copy of this and has kindly donated that to me to also read because she thought it'd be something that I would like to read too. The next non-fiction item is this. It is You Could Do Something Amazing With Your Life, You Are Raoul Moat. Raoul Moat is a murderer who is no longer alive, and he was going through issues in his relationship, trying to have custody of his children, but he was a very violent, aggressive man. This is a sort of literary fiction, I think literary fiction, I'm not sure. It's described as a literary reimagining of what happened or what was going through his mind in the build up to the events where he killed some people. I'm just curious about how this author has reimagined his life or what he did. The final book in the section of this video called Depressing Books That No One Would Probably Want to Read is a biography by Mae West, who is the daughter of Fred and Rosemary West, called Love, As Always, Mum. I believe this is written with, who else is it written with? With Neil McKay. And she was the daughter of 2 famous serial killers in the UK. And there's also been a Netflix docuseries that's cropped up recently, I think has piqued a lot of people's interest again in the pair of them, and they were absolute monsters, and I can't imagine what Mae went through and what she saw in that house, and I'm just curious to read what she's done with her life and how she coped and what she went through. The final book in the non-fiction section of my TBR is Shakespeare and Feminist Theory by Marianne Novi. I have a copy of this on Kindle, and it's just something that I've been meaning to get around to reading. I think this book is more looking at the history of feminist theory of Shakespeare studies as opposed to another set of essays from different literary theory styles looking at Shakespeare's specific works. I think this is going to be more like a history or a chronology of literary theory itself. The last 5 that I have put under the banner of miscellaneous, and that's because I just wasn't sure what to put them under, where I only had like one of one genre or one of a particular type. So I'm going to start with this poetry anthology. This is She Will Roar, and it is a collection of women's writings, I believe, across many years. And Anna Sampson also curated a wonderful collection of poetry that was, I think, one of my 5-star reads last year. So when I saw that she'd also created this, I had to pick it up. Uplifting collection of bright, brave poems about freedom written by women from the ancient world right through to present day. Here is a bold choir of voices demanding independence and celebrating their hard-won power. Wonderful. I have some literary fiction here, and that is Remarkable Creatures by Tracy Chevalier. I adore her. I reread for the first time in years Garble the Pearl Earring, and that was one of my top 10 books of all time. So when I reread it, I was hoping it would still hold up to that standard, and it really does. And I think she's magnificent. She's also got a book out this year. I can't remember the name of it. I'll pop it on the screen to work my way through the rest of her work. So I've only got 1 or 2 left. I think she's written maybe 8 books or so. So this is another one that I was looking forward to ticking off. I believe it's to do with women that work in archaeology or sort of fossil collecting, and obviously for the period that I believe this is set in, which is I think the early 19th century, that wasn't a profession for women. I'm hoping it's going to be good. One of the quotes on the back says, Chevalier recently stated that making fossils sexy was one of her chief aims in writing Remarkable Creatures, and she has certainly succeeded. Final book on my summer TBR is the only remotely summery-ish seasonal kind of book that I'm probably going to read in the next 3 months, and that is Happy Place by Emily Henry. This looks very summery, I know I've read my first Emily Henry earlier in the year, so I kind of know what to expect in terms of style, genre, tone. And I think this will be another nice one that's going to break up some of the atrocious things and scary nightmare fuel books that I've also picked up for the rest of the summer. This looks happy, it looks wholesome, they're obviously going to fall in love, and it will just give me a tiny mental reprieve from everything distressing that I've got planned. So those are all the books, I'm guessing it's about 20 odd, that I would like to get through in the next 3 months over summer. If there are any that you've already read, please do let me know what you thought of them so I know which ones I can try and get to a little bit sooner. If there are any horror thriller type books that you think I would enjoy, especially over the summer holiday, do let me know and put them in the comments because I'm always open for recommendations. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and please do like, comment and subscribe. I will see you soon.